think I think some people might walk into this film if they haven't read the book and wonder this is kind of talking about a part of Irish history that predominantly affected women, but here we are being told through a male perspective. And even though it's Claire Keegan, even though it works so well, because Bill is so much more than just a man, he's this like blue collar family man with five daughters to think of. And I wonder, what is it about Bill's perspective do you think was the right way to tell this story?
Yeah, well, I think it's a story written by a woman with the male protagonist in a world full of women, and I think he's formed by what happened to his mother, because he was born out of wedlock, to use that awful expression, and yet his mother and his mother's life and his life were saved by the charity of this rich woman, Mrs. Wilson, and so he was defined by this act of kindness, by this act of charity, and I think
Yeah.
that has made him the person that he is, and made him that kind, empathetic kind of man, and that just shows, I think, again, it's so deep, all of this stuff, it's so complex, but I think it shows that what happens in childhood happens what forever, and the values that you're given as a child can form you as an adult. So there's so many things at play throughout the seemingly complex, seemingly simple novel, which is actually very complex.
Exactly. And I think you're obviously no stranger to Irish roles, the wind that shakes the barley, you're playing this like Irish kind of war hero. And then you're playing someone on the fringes of society and Breakfast on Pluto. And I wonder, making a film like this and talking about the most shameful things that Irish society has ever been subjected to, I wonder how did that change the way you felt about being Irish? Did it change the way you feel about your cultural identity? Like, what did you take home with this?
Uh it was very educational, in a profoundly depressing way,
Yeah.
reading about it, and I think for like I'm 48, so like I very much had a foot in both Ireland's, that deeply, deeply religious, conservative Ireland, and then I also have a foot in, this very, very liberal, progressive Ireland that we live in now. So I kind of straddle both worlds, and um, so that was interesting to me. But then I was raised Catholic. It was taught by Catholic schools, taught by Presentation Brothers, like all the way up, and I remember asking my son once when he was younger. I remember saying to him, "So, Malachy, what do you want to be when you grow up? Do you want to be an astronaut or a train driver or a priest?" And he said, "What's a priest, Daddy?" And like it was like, a mad but natural response from a 10-year-old at that time. But for me, priests were just everywhere and so much part
Yeah.
of it. Um, I think, what we have to just accept is that the legacy of the Catholic Church in Ireland is one of huge achievement in education, for example, but also this legacy of abuse and cruelty. And we just have to accept both versions of it. And it's, for me, it's not about being anti-faith, because I'm not, and I very much respect people who have faith. I just don't want faith imposed upon people, and I
Yeah.
don't believe in absolutism of any kind, or control of people's bodies, or morals. I just don't believe in any of that. But it's not
Yeah.
anti-faith. Do you know what I mean?
Is one of your first time as a producer, and I wonder, that obviously comes with plethora of new duties, but I wonder, did being a producer as well affect your approach to the character as an actor? Like, did you feel you had more freedom with what you could do with the character?
No, 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 no. It didn't change the creative way thing. And anyway, in fact, it just kind of enriched it, I think. What it allowed me to do was to hand pick the people that I really wanted to work with again, which were Enda, Tim, Alan Maloney, Eileen Walsh, many of the crew,
Yeah.
um, Maureen Hughes, the casting director, like many of these people that I've worked with over the course of my career, who I know are astonishingly good at what they do, and were really, really kind to me and supportive to me over the years, was to be able to go, wouldn't it be brilliant to bring all these people back together again and work with them all? And it worked
Yeah.
out. So that was really exciting. And like the practical stuff of like budgets and tax credits and all that stuff, Alan Maloney is genius at all that stuff, but he's also really good creatively. So for me, it's the thing of like bringing people together is the most exciting thing, connecting people. And then also like being in the edit, and watching the film take shape, and being able to. I was heavily involved in the music and things like that. That stuff is very exciting to me.
And you're working as a producer on the very highly anticipated The Immortal Man, the Peaky Blinders film. I
Oh yeah.
wonder, what can you tell us about it? What can people expect? Maybe something that they didn't see in the show?
You know that I can't tell you anything. I wish
Okay,
I
I'll try something else because I am the horror editor here at Collider. So I'd love to know, is there anything you can tell us about 28 years later that we haven't seen the original trilogy? And a question I've always wanted to ask you, because you worked with one of the greatest horror filmmakers of all time, Wes Craven. I'd
Oh
love
yeah.
to know, is there anything that he taught you that you might now bring to kind of horror projects in the future?
Interesting. I can't tell you anything about 28 years later either, other than we've shot it.
Okay.
The second one, this we sh so uh, I Wes Craven did but that really wasn't he wasn't making a horror movie.
Yeah.
Uh, then it was a sort of a thriller, which was interesting. And
Yeah.
I don't watch horror movies because I'm too much I'm a scaredy cat. And I genuinely like the only horror movie I think I've ever watched is The Shining because it's Kubrick. But otherwise,
Yeah.
I'm too much of a scaredy cat. So I didn't really learn much from him. I guess he was very good at jump scares and all of that stuff. But it felt like we were in a different genre. It's making that movie.
I think those horror sensibilities do creep in though. Like you go into that film and you know right away it's a Wes Craven, even though it's not Scream, it's not Nightmare on Elm Street. You could
Right.
still tell.
Really? Okay. You know better than I would.